The first sign was the way Mia's phone never left her side. It wasn't the usual attachment, scrolling through social media or texting friends. It was something else. A sudden protectiveness, a nervous flicker in her eyes when I glanced her way. I had ignored it at first. Love, after all, required trust. Or at least, that's what I told myself. But trust has a way of unraveling when the truth lurks beneath every forced smile. The night it all fell apart, I was supposed to be out with friends. I had left, even walked 2 blocks down the street, but something tugged at me, an invisible thread pulling me back. A feeling, an unease. When I returned, the apartment was eerily quiet. And then I heard his voice. Low, intimate, like a whisper meant for only one person to hear. But I heard it. From the hallway, I saw them, Mia and Ethan. His hand on her waist, his lips brushing against her neck. A touch far too familiar for 2 people who weren't supposed to be lovers. I didn't say anything. I couldn't. I stood there, watching, feeling my entire world tilt. The air felt thick, suffocating. My breath came in short bursts, but my body refused to move. It was as if some part of me needed to see it with my own eyes before my heart could believe it. And then Mia saw me. Her eyes widened, her body jerked away from his touch, but it was too late. The damage was already done. Daniel. Her voice was soft, almost apologetic, but there was something else beneath it. Relief. That's what gutted me the most. Not the betrayal itself, but the realization that she had already made her choice long before I found out. I don't remember much after that. Just the sound of my heartbeat, the blood roaring in my ears as I turned and walked away. She didn't follow me. The days that followed blurred into a haze of unanswered texts and restless nights. I told myself I should be angry. I should scream, throw things, demand explanations. But instead, I felt empty. I went through the motions, work, eating, sleeping, except none of it felt real. The world moved on, oblivious to the fact that mine had come to a screeching halt. Then came the avoidance. Friends reached out. I ignored them. My boss asked if I was okay. I lied. The idea of talking about it, of peeling back the wound before it had even begun to scab over, felt unbearable. The only thing I could do was escape. An escape, in this case, meant sinking into the walls of my apartment, existing in a space where nothing touched me, except for the memories of her. That's where Alex found me. I had seen him before, of course. Alex Monroe lived in the apartment next door. The kind of guy who had an easy presence, like he belonged anywhere he went. Tall, well-built, always impeccably dressed. Someone who carried himself with confidence, but never arrogance. He had this way of smiling, like he already knew something you didn't. We had exchanged pleasantries before, a nod in the hallway, the occasional small talk while collecting mail. But we were nothing more than acquaintances with shared walls. That changed the night he knocked on my door. I almost didn't answer. I wasn't in the mood for conversation. But something about the persistence of his knock made me drag myself off the couch. When I opened the door, he was leaning against the frame, arms crossed, a casual but knowing look on his face. "You look like hell." "Thanks," I muttered. "Want to talk about it?" I stared at him, caught off guard by his directness. Most people tiptoed around pain, afraid to acknowledge it. Alex walked right through it like it didn't scare him. "No," I said. He nodded as if he expected that answer. "Okay, then let's not talk. Let's drink instead." I hesitated. I had spent days avoiding people, avoiding anything that required effort. But the loneliness was starting to weigh on me. Before I could think too much about it, I found myself following him next door. Alex's apartment was nothing like mine. Where my space was cluttered with neglected laundry and half-eaten meals, his was neat, curated. Art on the walls, dim lighting, a space that felt lived in but intentional. He handed me a glass of whiskey and gestured toward the couch. "So, is this about the breakup, or did someone steal your dog?" I let out a short, bitter laugh. "Breakup?" He nodded, taking a sip of his drink. "Messy?" "More like humiliating." For the first time in days, I talked. Not in the rehearsed, detached way I had when coworkers asked if I was okay, but honestly, raw. I told him about Mia, about Ethan, about the way betrayal doesn't just break you, It makes you question everything. He listened. No interruptions, no forced advice. Just listened. And somehow, that made it easier to keep talking. You ever been in love? I asked at one point. Alex smirked. A few times. Some good, some bad. Some complicated. Complicated how? He tilted his head, considering me. Ever fall for someone who wasn't supposed to be yours? The way he said it made something stir in my chest, an unspoken weight behind the words. But I didn't press. Instead, I just nodded because for the first time, I understood exactly what that felt like. The night stretched on, conversation weaving between heartbreak and humor, pain and distraction. It felt strange, sitting there with someone I barely knew, yet feeling like I wasn't completely alone anymore. At some point, Alex leaned back, studying me. You know, wallowing has its limits. You should get out of your apartment. Come out with me sometime. To where? He shrugged. Anywhere that isn't your couch. I hesitated. The idea of stepping back into the world felt impossible. But then again, so I talking about it. And yet here I was. I'll think about it, I said. Alex smirked. You do that. As I stepped back into my own apartment that night, the weight on my chest felt just a little lighter. I wasn't healed. Not even close. But for the first time in a long time, I felt like maybe, just maybe, I wasn't completely broken either. And that was something. The first time I accepted Alex's invitation, I told myself it was just for the distraction. I needed noise, movement, anything to drown out the endless replay of Mia and Ethan's betrayal in my head. What I didn't expect was how quickly Alex became the one constant in a world that suddenly felt foreign. At first, it was small things, grabbing coffee, late-night drinks, long walks where we talked about everything except what was really happening inside me. But then, something shifted. It was a Friday when Alex convinced me to go out. Come on, he said, leaning casually against my doorway. No more sulking. One night. No pressure. I should have said no. I should have stayed in the safety of my apartment, where nothing unexpected could happen. Instead, I found myself stepping into a dimly lit bar, the scent of liquor and faint cologne settling into my skin. It wasn't my usual scene. Too many strangers, too much energy, but Alex made it easy. He moved through the crowd like he belonged there, like he belonged anywhere. And for the first time in weeks, I felt something other than emptiness. We sat in a corner booth, drinks in hand. You're loosening up, Alex teased, swirling his whiskey. I smirked, shaking my head. I think that's just the alcohol. He raised a brow. Or maybe you're realizing you're allowed to have fun. I wanted to argue, but I didn't. Instead, I let the conversation drift, talk of childhood memories, past relationships, things I never admitted to anyone. Somewhere between the second and third drink, Alex leaned in, close. His voice was softer when he spoke. You know, you don't talk about her much. Not really. I tensed, but Alex held my gaze, unflinching. He had a way of pulling the truth out of me, even when I wasn't ready to face it. There's nothing left to say, I admitted. She made her choice. I was just collateral damage. Alex studied me for a moment, then shook his head. That's not true, isn't it? No. He took a slow sip of his drink before setting it down. You were more than that. You were more than that. I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to. But I wasn't sure I knew how anymore. As the night stretched on, I started to notice things. Things I had ignored before. The way Alex's eyes lingered when I spoke. The way his fingers brushed against mine when he handed me another drink. The way my pulse kicked up at the smallest touches. I told myself it was the alcohol, the atmosphere, the loneliness. But then there was the way I leaned in, the way I found myself hanging on to every word he said, like he was the only solid thing in a world that had been slipping out from under me. And the way, when he laughed, something inside me wanted to hear that sound again. It was subtle, unspoken, but it was there. I felt it, and I knew he did too. Later, when we stepped out into the cool night air, I expected Alex to say goodbye, to let the night end like any other. But he didn't. Instead, he walked beside me, hands tucked into his jacket pockets, the streetlights casting soft shadows across his face. You know, he said, after a long stretch of silence, for someone who claims to be fine, you sure look lost. I scoffed. Thanks for the observation, Dr. Phil. Alex smirked, but his expression remained thoughtful. You ever wonder if maybe what happened wasn't just an ending? Maybe it was a reset. A reset? He nodded. Like, maybe this is your chance to figure out who you really are without her. Without anyone else's expectations. I hesitated. And what if I don't like what I find? Alex stopped walking, turning to face me. Then maybe it's not about liking it. Maybe it's just about being honest with yourself for the first time. There was something in the way he looked at me then. Something knowing. And that's when it hit me. He wasn't just talking about Mia. He was talking about this. About us. About the thing we weren't saying out loud. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was standing on the edge of something I didn't fully understand. And for the first time, I wasn't sure if I wanted to step back or take the leap. When we reached my door, Alex didn't immediately leave. He leaned against the frame, watching me carefully. You okay? I nodded, though I wasn't entirely sure it was the truth. His eyes flickered over my face, searching. If you ever want to talk. I know. The space between us felt dangerous. Like if I reached out, if I stepped just a little closer, something would break. I should have gone inside. Should have ended the night there. But instead, I said, do you want to come in? It was a simple question, an innocent one. But the way Alex's lips parted slightly, the way his eyes darkened just enough to betray a thought he wasn't voicing, it didn't feel innocent at all. His gaze dropped to my mouth for the briefest second. So quick I almost convinced myself I imagined it. Then just as quickly, he stepped back, exhaling slowly. Not tonight. Something inside me tightened. Disappointment? Relief? I wasn't sure. Alex smirked, as if he knew exactly what I was feeling. Good night, Daniel. Then he was gone, disappearing into his own apartment, leaving me standing there, heart pounding against my ribs. I ran a hand through my hair, exhaling sharply before stepping inside. The air in my apartment felt different now. Charged. Unsettling. Because for the first time, I wasn't just grieving what I had lost. I was starting to wonder about what I might be finding instead. I tried to tell myself that nothing had changed. That Alex was just a friend, someone who had been there for me when I needed an escape. That the moments we shared, the charged silences, the lingering glances, the unspoken something sitting between us, were just misunderstandings, figments of my overactive, emotionally wrecked imagination. But denial only works when you don't have proof staring you in the face. And the problem was, every time I looked at him, every time his voice filled the space between us, proof was all I could see. It happened 3 weeks after that first night out. By then, Alex had become a constant in my life. Dinners that stretched into midnight conversations. Long walks where he challenged me in ways no one else ever had. Quiet moments where I caught myself watching him a little too long, feeling something I shouldn't. But that night, everything shifted. I had been spiraling again. Mia had texted me. Not an apology. Not an attempt at closure. Just a casual, hollow hey, hope you're doing okay. As if she hadn't burned down everything I had believed in. I stared at the message, a hollow ache blooming in my chest. I had been doing better, or at least I thought I had. But in that moment, it felt like I was right back at square one. So I did what had become second nature. I knocked on Alex's door. He opened it almost immediately, taking one look at me before stepping aside. Bad day. I exhaled, running a hand through my hair. You could say that. He didn't press for details. He never did. Instead, he poured 2 drinks and handed me one, guiding me to the couch like he already knew that words would come when I was ready. For a while, we just sat there in comfortable silence, the weight of my thoughts pressing against the space between us. And then, without looking at me, Alex said, she reached out, didn't she? I tensed, fingers tightening around my glass. How did you know? He smirked, but there was something softer underneath it. Because I've been where you are. The moment you start to move on, they always find a way to remind you they still exist. I exhaled a bitter laugh. So what do I do? Alex turned then, his gaze steady. Certain. You remind yourself that she's not your future. Just a mistake you've already made. The words should have been comforting. Instead, they unraveled something inside me. Something fragile. Something I wasn't ready to name. Because if Mia wasn't my future, then what was? Who was? I don't know what made me do it. Maybe it was the whiskey, warm and heady in my veins. Maybe it was the way Alex looked at me, like he saw something buried deep inside me that even I had been too afraid to face. Maybe I was just tired of pretending. But before I could stop myself, I reached out, my fingers brushing against his. A small touch, innocent, until he didn't pull away, until he turned his hand over, letting his fingers graze mine, slow and deliberate, like he was testing a boundary, waiting to see if I would pull back. I didn't. My breath caught. The world tilted. I should have said something. Should have made a joke, laughed it off, done anything to break the moment before it became something I couldn't take back. But then Alex moved closer. Just a fraction. Just enough. And suddenly, I was hyper-aware of everything. The warmth of his skin, the sharp cut of his jaw, the way his lips parted slightly, like he was debating something, like he was giving me the chance to decide. I could still walk away. I could still pretend. But instead, I whispered, Alex. He exhaled slowly, his eyes dark, unreadable. Yeah, I didn't know what I was going to say. Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. But I didn't get the chance. Because before I could think, before I could talk myself out of it, before I could remind myself that this was uncharted, dangerous, irreversible, I kissed him. For a moment, there was nothing but stillness. Then, Alex's hand slid up, his fingers grazing the side of my neck, and just like that, the world snapped into focus. His lips were warm, soft but certain, moving against mine in a way that felt both new and inevitable. My pulse roared in my ears, my entire body coiled tight with something I couldn't control. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't desperate. It was deliberate, intense, a silent admission of something we had both been avoiding. And that terrified me, because this wasn't just about loneliness. This wasn't just about filling the empty spaces Mia had left behind. This was something else, something real, and real meant consequences. I was the first to pull away, not because I wanted to, but because wanted was the problem. Alex's forehead rested against mine, his breath still warm against my lips. He didn't say anything, didn't move, just let me process the unraveling of everything I thought I knew about myself. My voice cracked. I swallowed hard, taking a shaky step back. Alex's expression was unreadable, but his eyes, they held something I wasn't ready to see. Daniel, he said softly. Not a question, not a demand, just my name, just a truth I wasn't ready for. I shook my head, my chest tightening. I can't. It was a lie, but I said it anyway. Because admitting anything else would mean accepting that my world had already changed. And I wasn't ready for that. Alex studied me for a long moment, then gave a slow, knowing nod. Okay, but the way he said it, the way his jaw tightened slightly, I knew he didn't believe me. And worse, I wasn't sure I did either. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt the ghost of Alex's lips on mine, the warmth of his hands, the way he had looked at me. Not just with desire, but with something deeper, something terrifying. And worse than that, I wanted to feel it again. But one was dangerous. One had consequences. So, the next morning, I did the only thing I knew how to do. I avoided him. It started small. I ignored his texts, kept my door shut, left the apartment early, and came home late, making sure there was no chance of running into him in the hallway. But Alex wasn't stupid. 3 days after the kiss, there was a knock on my door. I hesitated, staring at the handle like it might bite me. Another knock, louder this time. I sighed, bracing myself before opening it. Alex leaned against the frame, arms crossed, expression unreadable. So, this is how we're doing things now. I swallowed hard. Alex, you kissed me. I flinched. I know, you kissed me. He repeated, stepping inside uninvited. And now you're acting like it never happened. I turned away, running a hand through my hair. I don't know what you wanted to say. Alex scoffed. How about the truth? I clenched my jaw, my chest tight. The truth is, I don't know what I'm doing, okay? I don't know what this means. I don't even know who I am anymore. Alex was silent for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was quieter, softer. I never asked you to have all the answers, Daniel. I just asked you not to lie to yourself. I exhaled shakily. I'm not lying. Alex tilted his head, studying me. Aren't you? The problem with Alex was that he saw through me. He saw the things I tried to bury, the truths I didn't want to admit. And standing there, Under the weight of his gaze, I realized I had two choices. I could keep running, keep pretending, keep convincing myself that what I felt was just confusion, loneliness, anything but real. Or I could stop. And for the first time in my life, I wanted to stop. I took a slow breath, my voice barely above a whisper. "I'm scared, Alex." His expression softened. "I know." I met his gaze, something inside me cracking open. "But I don't want to be." Alex stepped closer, his fingers brushing against mine. A small touch, a question. And this time, I didn't pull away. When Alex kissed me again, it wasn't like before. There was no hesitation, no uncertainty. Just warmth, certainty, the slow, deliberate unraveling of every lie I had told myself. And when I kissed him back, it wasn't because I was lost. It was because for the first time in a long time, I knew exactly where I was supposed to be.